what we're here for. So thank you, Evan, for your time. We have the panelists, Professor Stone's the host. I'm an ambassador for Petra in EduCore, and Jennifer is too. And we're just here to talk about FAFSA financial aid and how we can apply and what it means to have financial aid. Evan, my first question is, what are some of the basic benefits of financial aid for first year students?
So at a minimum, it makes you eligible for student loans. Now you could also, and what everyone's hoping for, be eligible for grants by filling out either the FAFSA or the California Dream application.
Okay, so what's the difference between a grant, the two different grants too, and then a loan?
So grants, it's essentially free money. You don't have to pay it back, not 100%, because if you finish out the semester, you don't have to pay it back. But if you drop classes, that's where it gets into a different thing. So I don't want to say like guaranteed you don't have to pay it back, but typically you don't. Loans after you graduate is when you're started to having to make payments on it. So 6 months after graduation.
And there are two type of loans, right? Or is that not?
Not for everyone. So you have to qualify for the subsidized. Everyone will be offered the unsubsidized for FAFSA filers. So unfortunately, DREAM students aren't eligible for the federal loans.
Okay, I think that was another one of my questions. I didn't know how to word it. I think it's called the Dream Act. Is that undocumented people in California? Because my next question was, how does FAFSA work for people who are having trouble with documentation, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so for our undocumented students, that's going to be the DREAM application, and that's a California-based one, because they're obviously not eligible for the federal-based aid, but they fill out the California Dream application before March 2nd, because if it's after March 2nd, they won't be eligible for anything for that year.
Okay.
But then it makes them eligible for California-based grants, and then students with the most need can be offered the California Dream loan. That one is a very small population for the loan. It's mostly the grants.
Okay. So what are some qualifications for FAFSA? I think you already stated it, but what was it again?
So for the FAFSA, it's going to be U.S. citizen and a student.
Okay, simple process.
And then depending on your qualifications within filing it, so that's just to file it. But then if you have a really high income, you might only be offered loans only, because FAFSA is typically meant for people that need a little bit more help with paying for college. Right. So with having a really high income, you may only have loans only, but I've seen ones where they have a high income and they still were offered a grant.
Hey, that's pretty sweet. I mean, as much as you can get in college is, all that matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long does financial aid extend to?
So it goes the whole year.
No, that's not what I mean. How many times can I apply, or how long can I be on FAFSA as far as when I go to college?
Gotcha. So depending on the age you have, so like let's say you have the Pell Grant, for example, that one you can receive for up to 6 years. The way that financial aid and FAFSA personnel are going to refer to it as 600%, but that's just receiving 100% of the Pell Grant for 6 years. It can be extended out, like let's say you took a semester off. So that's why we use the percentage, because like, oh, you took a semester off here. So you still have 550%, even though it was over 6 years. So now you can take that one semester in the fall to finish up and you have that one semester.
Okay. As far as the you might have to pay the financial aid back, I just want to speak on that because you mentioned it. In my own experience, I did fail a couple of classes on my way to get here, and it is true that you don't have to pay financial aid back. You're not supposed to if you pass your classes, and I think they do it for every class that you fail with the F. You have to pay those units back every unit you failed. So that is true. Just wanted to throw that out there.
So the way we do it, it's called the satisfactory academic progress, and it's changing for the fall. So this semester is the last go around of how we're currently doing it. But right now it's if you failed like 1 or 2 classes, we look at you like if you out of 12 and you failed like 3 units, then you're going to be at a warning status. But if you failed half or more, then you're going to be a lack of progress 1. And so you have to appeal then to be reinstated for aid for that following semester.
So there's stages. They don't just strip it from you. Okay.
Yeah, and you don't have to pay it back for the classes you failed. It's just that you have to appeal to be eligible for the following semester. The new system that we're going to, and it's hopefully going to be more beneficial to the students, is it's looking at your overall progress. So you could have one bad semester, it's really common, but it's not going to strip you of the financial aid and you have to appeal because normally you're a good student and you just had a rough time this one semester. And so it's looking at your overall progress. And then if your overall tendency is you've been struggling, then it's going to be now an appeal.
Yeah, because it's just trying to make sure you're doing your work. Well, make sure everything's right for you that semester, basically. So that makes sense. And I'm happy that they don't just take it from you. I guess one of my last questions that I can think of right now, which is fairly simple. Financial aid covers every institution, or is there specifically institutions that won't accept financial aid, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so your private institutions won't be eligible for FAFSA funding. It's for public institutions.
Okay. Yeah. So that's my basic question. Thank you, Evan.
Anytime.
Andrew. Jennifer, did you have any questions, or maybe there are some things that you can think about that might come up for students? Maybe they've come up for you in the past, or your peers, or just kind of some of the misconceptions about FAFSA and what it means to get financial aid through it.
Yeah, well, Andre asked really good questions, so it's kind of like he answered all, but I guess something that shocked me was when he talked about, put yourself as a 5-year student if you're going to do the credential program, because that's something that I didn't do. So make sure you go talk to someone before you do all this stuff so they can answer all your questions. But just knowing that, I feel like I should have gone. I thought I knew what I was doing. But I did receive some help from FAFSA. I mean, it didn't cover a lot, but it covered part of my semester. And then just scholarships, I went out and I went through all the ones that I could do that could help me. So I did the North Bay residency. I did the CSU residency scholarship as well, because I knew that I was going to need help for paying for school. So I think just my suggestion is maybe you don't qualify for FAFSA a lot because of your income or whatever happens, but reach out to scholarships because they're really out there to help you.
Exactly. That's why I push scholarships a lot. It's surprising that students don't look into it more. They kind of think that, it's just the Sonoma State-based ones and that's it. There's even ones you can talk to your department. A lot of departments have their own scholarship, and then those ones won't have that deadline of February 1st. And then even if a lot of employers offer scholarships. And so I always recommend asking your employer too.
I'd like to go back to the point that Jennifer brought up that you had mentioned earlier, Evan, because this is meant to inform future educators who would be going for their credentials. So if you can really talk through the details of what it means to be a 5th-year undergrad, how to do that part of the financial aid, because it doesn't sound like we really hear about that a lot, and it sounds really important.
Yeah, and like I said, this is the most common issue. It's an easy fix. So let's say students already filed their 21-22 FAFSA and filled it out as a graduate. It's a really easy fix. But you want to fill it out as a 5th-year undergraduate. And that's to give you, the student, the bigger benefit, because as a graduate student, you're only eligible essentially for the unsubsidized loan. That's not everyone's favorite because that's the one that you're accruing interest while you're a student and you have to pay it back 6 months after graduation is when you start. So as a 5th-year undergraduate, you're still eligible for the Pell possibly. You can get the State University or Cal grant, and there's a couple other grants, but those are the 2 main ones, is the California-based one and the Pell grant that you'd be considered for. And then even possibly the subsidized loan, which that's the one where if you're going to choose between the 2 loans, choose the subsidized, because that's the one you're not accruing interest while you're student. The interest doesn't accrue until after graduation.
And if you need both, get both.
Yeah, a lot of them use both.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. And so this is specific to credential students. This is not for any other kind of graduate, post baccalaureate, post BA or BS work.
Correct. That's only for credentials.
Okay.
For any other post-baccalaureate one, it's going to be graduate.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. That's super helpful. Yeah. Thank you. Good.
And Evan, sorry. I just wanted to ask, how long did you need your parents' information? Because I remember something about that. There was like a time period to where you didn't need their information. And
That's a great question. So yeah, that's until the age 23 or older.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 25.
But then there's other things that will make a student independent. So like if you're married, you have kids or dependents, you've served in the military, you were orphan ward of the court, you were an emancipated minor or in a legal guardianship. So there's a couple other things that will make you independent, but the timeline wise, it's 23 or older.
So when you're dependent is when you need the information of the guardian or the person you're living with. Okay.
And what a lot of parents have an issue with, because there's students that are financially independent from their parents already at 18. And so they're like, well, I'm financially independent, so I should be an independent student. For FAFSA purposes, you're still considered dependent, even though you are on your own. But to calm the parent, it doesn't obligate the parent to pay anything. So like if that's the agreement that the parent and the student have, is the student's financially supporting themselves, it's just putting the information there so that the student's eligible for financial aid. Because sadly, sometimes we come into the issue where the parent just refuses to put their information on the FAFSA because they fear that they're going to have to be financially obligated. And then that makes it the students only eligible for unsubsidized. Even if they had a 0 EFC and would normally get the maximum amount of financial aid and grants and all that, they can only get unsubsidized loan.
Yeah, and I think I asked that question because I had my pops, he with his tax return, he like, I don't know who you giving my taxes to. I'm like, this is for my school. So it was always a thing every year. I couldn't wait to like time out to where I was like, thank you. I don't need this information.
And something else to calm the parents too is the information isn't shared with anything. Who sees the information already has access to it. It's just you reporting it for FAFSA purposes. So it's kind of formality, but like whoever would be looking at it already can see it, government wise. Because like the IRS already knows what you filed.
Right. So
Right.
I'm sorry for those people who have those stickler parents.
Yeah, that's a great question though, Andre. I'm glad you brought it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Andre or Jennifer, do you have any other questions, or maybe Evan, if there are any other kind of common misconceptions or common errors that might be helpful for people to know about, especially if they're kind of in their finishing up their undergrad and looking towards their credential?
Yeah,
Well,
so
I had to meet with a parent. I don't know why I scheduled it, but I was trying to make sure I had time to meet with a parent. So I do have to take off to meet with that parent. I do apologize about that, but thank you for your conference though.
anytime, happy to.
All right. Good luck with your parent conference.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so exciting when we get into those teaching roles, and we're really getting to know our students and their families, and really able to help out. So it's exciting to see Andre doing that. Yeah, and I think Evan, you're gonna respond, and I think I had asked about other common misconceptions or insights that you could offer.
Yeah, so the two most common ones were already touched on: the 5th-year undergraduate and then the independent status one. Another one that I could see is, so for like when you're filling out for the next year and you're about to graduate, fill it out already for the program that you're planning on going into, even though you may still be waiting on your acceptance letter. So like if you're going into the graduate program or credential, fill it out as that, even if you're still an undergraduate. This way you don't have to go in and make the correction You may get an email saying like, hey, it doesn't match up, and it's just waiting for that acceptance letter. And then once you have that, it's good to go.
Okay, great. Good. That's really helpful. Yeah. Any other questions that or things you might want to ask about? Oops, it's like Andre's coming back.
Yeah, hey. So the parent actually just emailed me right now. I gave him some good information. So yeah, I'm here.
Nice.
People should really want to meet with their students if they're failing though. So I'm a little worried.
Yeah, maybe they're busy at work, you know, things are right. It can be hard to get those meetings in and scheduled. So I'm glad they were able to connect with you at least on that way.
True.
Yeah. All right. Well, I would like to just very briefly share some of the things that we have coming up for EduCore. And let's see. So we have a number of informational and critical education sessions still this semester. Next week, we'll be talking about disability justice. Then we have an information session about the exams required for the credential application, which I know can cause a lot of anxiety for people. And so we really want to get you all the information, point you to the resources, and help you understand kind of where those are at, depending on if you are in a waiver program, which means you wouldn't have to take some of those exams. And if you are, what those requirements are. And then we'll have another critical education session celebrating our languages in the classroom. I'm really excited about this one. Jennifer is going to be leading us on this one, talking about translanguaging and really helping us think about our language practices, the ways that we would like to sustain them, in some cases revitalize them to really draw upon and honor the strengths and knowledges of our communities. We also have a celebration of teaching that's coming up in the last 3 weeks of April. We're going to have a lot of really good sessions. I'm really excited about all the different people who are coming together to share information and also to have really great discussions about a vision of education that may not have been reflected in our own primary or secondary, you know, our K through 12 experiences. But we're going to think about ethnic studies in K through 12 classrooms and how those support Black, Indigenous, and POC and multilingual children and youth, and how we can really work to negotiate that curriculum and pedagogy into a lot of the ways that schools' curriculum and approaches are already seem to be stuck in place, but there is always room to negotiate and think about that. We'll also have a info session for future multilingual educators. The Male Educators of Color Student Org is going to be having a panel and some great discussion with male educators of color on campus and mentors and what it's like to enter educational spaces and, you know, how to really form networks of support that can be really important for us. And finally, we're going to have a couple different sessions where we think about what it means to grow community and support community as future educators, both right now while you all are at Sonoma State, and in the future. What does that look like once you are working in a K through 12 classroom? Oh, I'm going to pass that one. So next Thursday, we will have a disability justice critical education session. Why does it matter for all of us? And why does it especially matter in the time of COVID, right? We have so many unknowns. We have a lot of loss, a lot of fear, a lot of information that we're not clear on, but why is it important for us to think about disability in ways that connect to other marginalized identities. How is disability justice a part of economic and racial justice? And I'm really excited to be drawing upon the work and thought of some people who've been thinking about this for a long time. So we hope to see you there. And also you can follow us on Instagram, SSU_EduCore. So really glad that we can share this information with you. Thank you so much to Evan, who's here from the SSU Financial Aid Office and provided some really great insights, especially for going from finishing your BA or BS and going into that 5th year credential. That is some really key. I don't know what the case was when I was in that position, but I don't think I knew that. So I'm really glad to know that now and to be able to pass that on to all of you. And I definitely, Evan, what do you do if you're, want to find out more about financial aid? Can people make individual appointments with the financial aid office, or how does that work at SSU?
So we have the website has more than enough information than I even want to know. But if you have any questions, we have the phones, so it's calling Seawolf Services. Our departments merged.
Mhm.
And then if you have something specific that needs to be fixed that can't be answered with a general question, you can always email the representative. And so there's 3 of us. We just hired a 4th, so she's in training. And then, yeah, we'll get you squared away.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much.
What was your name again?
Oh,